What's going on, everybody? Francis Carlota here with Bluff City Media. Welcome to the very first episode of Tigers Live, coming off a big-time victory for the Memphis Tigers, 112-86 against the Wichita State Shockers on the road. I'm joined by Mark King. Mark, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I am, you know what? I'm happy to not have to sweat out a game for once. That's all I ask for between the Grizzlies and the Tigers. It's just not, can we just please beat people and we can all just just breathe in the second half. So shout out to Penny and the Tigers for doing that for us. We all appreciate, what we thought. I guess the last game they had, we thought this was going to happen on that game. They'd be blowing people out, and this would be a close game. But I'll take it.
100%. I'll take any blowout win against any opponent. If it's against the number one team in the country, fantastic. If it's against the worst team in the whole entire country, fantastic. Because obviously we struggled to blow out bad teams, as we saw against UTSA, Austin Peay, Vanderbilt. The list goes on and on. But finally, the Tigers got a big time victory. I mean, I think we got to start with Javon Quinterly, Mark. He looked to me. This is, to me, the healthiest he's looked all year. His bounce, his shiftiness, his quickness, his ability to get downhill. I mean, he's always had that ability to break down defenders and get to the rim. But today, especially, he just looked so clean and so effortless. The announcers even said it on broadcast. Yeah. It doesn't look like he was breaking a sweat. And quite frankly, it just looked easy. It looked easy for JQ.
Yeah, I was on the same thing. I remember them saying the exact same thing. It really did look easy for him. It didn't look like he had much of a challenge on a lot of those drives. I mean, even you saw early in that, I guess maybe middle in the first quarter, they were trying to double him as well, and he was just dribbling out of double teams easily. I credit JQ as much as anybody else, and he's extremely good. But the Shockers, they did not come with a good game plan for him. The things they tried to do did not work. And they did not adjust in any way, shape, or form to the Tigers at all. Again, I'll take it, but they did not do any adjustments in the second half. If anything, it was all Tigers doing the adjustments and making adjustments on the second half. But for JQ, they did nothing to try to stop him. Again, he is just that good. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to take any credit away from him. He is that good. But they came with a poor game plan.
I agree. I think he is just that good. Both things can be true, that JQ is incredible. Wichita State's game plan and guarding him wasn't good. Both things can be true, and I think they are true. especially watching that one. But I mean, 23 points, 11 assists, 4 steals, 3 boards for Javon Quinterly, 9 of 15 from the field, 5 of 6 from deep. I mean, those threes he was hitting just looked so easy. And I just love how composed he looks on the ball, the way he was able to dictate the flow of the offense. He was finding guys for open looks. I mean, Memphis had 25 assists today. JQ had 11 of them. And he was everything that I've wanted him to be offensively. I wrote an article for Bluff City Media about over a month ago or so, where I wanted him to be the conductor of this offense. And the more the offense is started with Javon Quinterly, and keyword is started, the more it's started by Javon Quinterly, the better. Now, does it always have to end with JQ? No, it doesn't always have to end with him. And we're going to talk about a guy who, you'd argue it should always end with this guy, David Jones. We'll talk about him in a bit. But it should always be started. The offense should always be started by Javon Quinterly. And he proved that perfectly today. Any other thoughts on JQ, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's you saw it, even with the assist to Dandridge and shout, shout out our guy Malco for the reunion tour.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, really and truly, shout out him for the reunion tour. But you see it with Malco all the time, and he'll get into the lane. You see it with him setting up all kinds of different guys. Once he gets down into the lane and opens up traffic, opens up space, and that's really kind of the name of the game in basketball is space. And he can do that once he gets guys on their heels, once he gets into the teeth of defense, once he gets into the lane, he just sucks in defenders. He's and that's the type of guy you need, especially as your point guard, who just sucks in defenders and creates space for other guys. And sometimes that's just an easy pocket pass. That's an easy dump off for an easy dunk, a 2-point or layup. And that's something that you need. And not only is he that guy, but I mean, he creates on the fast break too. I don't think we've talked about that quite yet, but I mean, the creation on the fast break is something that, look, I think Javon Quinterly is an NBA level talent. And to win national championships, to go forward, to excel in the, in the postseason, you need those guys. And I think it's been a long time since they've had that type of player at that level. And also a veteran. I think that's the key there, right? He's seen it all and he's done a lot. And that's this whole team, really. They're all a lot of veterans. And that is a really big key in doing well in the postseason.
Yeah, the secret to postseason success in college basketball is really elite guard play. That really is the key. Just look at FAU last year. Just elite veteran guards took them to the Final Four. And that is so important to postseason success. It's kind of different than the NBA. Like in the NBA, the most valuable position is a 3-and-D wing. But in college, that's not the most valuable thing. The most valuable thing are guards, are really guards who can get downhill, penetrate defenses, can hit the three, make the right reads, and as a playmaker as well. And that's what Javon Quinterly is. And he's got the talent around him. He's got the roster around him that fits what JQ wants to do really well. I see a lot of y'all in the comments talking about the second half, and we'll get to the second half for sure.
Before we go any further, I want to do something real quick. Before you go any further, shout out to everybody for this show. By the way, it's something that we had been talking about for a little bit. Myself and the ownership group, Love me approached Francis a couple of days ago. He was super excited about it, and we put this show together in like 3 days. And so, shout out to you, Francis, and our team for doing that. But also, just a little bit about this show. Like, this is about you guys. Like, this is about the people commenting. Well, Francis is going to take a lot of comments. I'm not going to be on the show all the time. I'm just filling in, but I'll be on here once in a while. But it's Francis' show. But taking comments, hearing from you guys, that's what this show is about. So I just want to say shout out to you, man. We really didn't prep that in the start of the show. We just got right into it, which I love. But the show we put together, we felt like it was needed. We'd do a show for the Grizzlies as a post-game show. We felt like something was needed for the Tigers as well, to really hear from the people, hear from the fans, and see everybody interacting. And that's kind of why we created this show. Shout out Francis. It's going to be a great show the rest of the year. Every game, rest of the year, you'll see the show everywhere you have social media, it'll show up. So sorry, I didn't want to interrupt our flow, but I did want to address that too.
100%. I appreciate it a lot, Mark. Yeah, I definitely went just straight in at the jump. It's the first show. Incredibly excited to get going. But yeah, thank you to you, Mark, to Kenny, Christian, everybody at Bluff City, to all of y'all tuning in. Please leave some comments. I want to talk. Let's talk. I'm here to talk with y'all, get engagement, and hear y'all's thoughts on the game as well. I'll be putting comments up on the board. So let's just kind of go through. Let's go through the game. We'll get to the second half and how big that was, but we got to acknowledge that first half as well. From my perspective at least, I don't necessarily believe that the Tigers defense was horrific. I don't think it was horrible. They definitely gave up a lot of shots. They definitely gave up looks at the basket. But Wichita State, credit them for hitting a lot of tough looks, hitting those shots as well. And they just played really well. And credit Memphis's offense for keeping up with the track meet of the first half as well. I liked a lot I liked what I saw from Naquan Tomlin a lot from in the first half. I think he hit some really important shots in the first half to keep Memphis within touching distance when Wichita State was up by 4, up by 6, and looking like potentially pulling away. So I'm glad to see Naquan Tomlin get back into the flow of the offense as well. But really, it was all about defensive adjustments going into the second half. Mm-hmm. And while the offense was good to see them step up, they had 13 assists in the first half, and they averaged 13 basically for the whole season per game. So to see him have 13 assists at half was good. But it was all about defensive adjustments. Mark, do you have any thoughts on the first half before we get into the second?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I don't think the defense was awful, right? I think that, they are hitting more 3-pointers than they've averaged all season. I think they average like 6 a season, or 6 a game. They hit 13. I mean, that's just a lot of times, you have it is a little bit of good defense, better offense situation. And I think that you see that a lot happening in the first half. It was just, there wasn't necessarily some bad defense. I think it was just they got good shots. I mean, they were getting shots, even difficult shots. And also, to your point, guys that don't hit shots, right? Like guys that don't hit threes are hitting threes. And so that happens. I mean, I don't think that's anything. Sometimes there's just not much you can do about that. Sometimes guys get on a heater. I mean, all these guys can play basketball. And so I think that's the important part to understand, is that that's going to happen from time to time. The most important thing, like you mentioned, though, in basketball and in the NBA, it's from quarter to quarter. And the college level, it is from, it is half to half, is adjustments that you see your own coach make. And that's the most important thing, right? You saw them go out there and the adjustments that Penny made for the second half, I think was really impressive, really important. And that's what matters more to me than the defense of the first. Now, if they get down by 20, obviously that matters. But in this particular game, I thought I was more concerned with what they were going to do in the second half than what they did in the first half.
Yeah, I think also you made another good point as well, that Wichita State, the guys hitting threes for them aren't normally known as 3-point shooters. So it seemed like to me that Penny's defensive game plan was to, definitely lock up on the dudes who can shoot the three, and then the guys who aren't known, especially to be on a scouting report, to be 3-point snipers, kind of leave them open and kind of let them shoot and see if they can beat Memphis. And they definitely did. Like, credit to Wichita State again for hitting their shots when they were given them. They hit them, they made them, and credit to Penny Hardaway and their defensive adjustments in the second half. And so let's talk about that second half. Let's get into it, because I've seen a lot of y'all talking about it now, and I fully agree that the second half, the start of it especially, was when things started to get cooking. Let's talk about David Jones, because there's just something about him. There's something about this guy that when he flips the switch and he just sees one go in, like he saw his first shot go in the second half, and you can kind of feel it. I don't know if you've ever played NBA Jam on the arcade game NBA Jam.
Yes.
And you start to you hit 2 shots in a row. The announcer says he's heating up, and you just feel that David Jones was heating up, and then he hits another 3. Then he hits another pull-up jump shot in the mid-range. It's a horrible shot, Mark. It's a horrible shot selection, but that he gets to that shot and he rises up. It almost feels unstoppable. It almost feels like MJ when he would go to the mid-range. It's not a high percentage shot, but you just felt like it was going to go in, and it did. And like the NBA Jam game, he was on fire, just absolutely on fire.
Yeah.
So, and credit to Penny as well for continuously feeding David Jones the ball, letting him stay hot, feeding the hot hand. I mean, there's something special about him and this Tigers offense. But, again, it wasn't just David Jones today. He has contributions from JQ and Jaquan Wallen. But, let's focus on DJ for a second because he was cold in the first half, but definitely hot in the second half. Mark, how special is David Jones for Memphis?
Well, I mean, first of all, he's an NBA player. I mean, I think that's, he's got good size he'll be in a guard in the NBA. He's not going to be, any kind of big forward, but he's got a good size for a guard in the NBA. I mean, and so, yeah, I mean, I think that's important. He said he didn't have it going in the first half. He didn't have it going. He's one of those guys where it's a no, yes type of situation. Like, oh God, you know what? I'll let it happen. But he's also a guy whenever he shoots, like you let him kind of do whatever he wants. He kind of has the green light for whatever he wants to do. So yeah, I mean, finishing 19 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, 7 for 15, not incredibly efficient, 3 for 8 from 3. But again, that goes to your point. I mean, it just didn't quite have it in the first half. And I think that's the difference between good players and great players, or average players and great players, is that they can find that second gear. They can kind of find the shot when they need to, or they can do other things. They can get to the rim when they know their 3-point shot's not falling, and that's the mark of kind of a good three level scorer. And David Jones is that, and so it's really impressive to see him again. Like we talked about, this is the type of players that take you a long way in the postseason. And so I think that credit to him for sticking with it. Credit to him for preventing to sticking with him. And like you said, feeding them the ball when you see someone who's got it. And I think they mentioned this in the broadcast. That's very much an NBA thing, right? Like,
yeah,
you're going to go and we'll run the exact same play until you can figure out how to stop it. If you can't stop it, that's on you. I don't care. And that's very much an NBA thing. You don't see that a lot in college, especially from like really long-term college coaches, but that's very much an NBA thing where we're going to run the same set or the same play that has different actions off that set, right? To get what we want every time. And if you can't stop it, then so be it. And so credit to Penny for seeing that and kind of recognizing that with David Jones and letting him just keep going.
Yeah, 100%. I think what I love about DJ, like you said, is he just has a dog mentality about him. I'm sure he recognized at halftime that he only had 2 points, that that's not who he is, that he needs to get into the flow of the game, start scoring, asserting himself on offense. And he did. Like that is just who he is. As my good friend Grant Heckinger said here, David Jones is inevitable. Like he just is. Like
yes,
kind of just lock in. You can kind of, I don't know betting props better than I do, Mark. I don't know what the betting is for over under for David Jones points. But if it's over under 20, I feel like that's a tough one. But I think I would still take the over. He scored 19 today, but I would probably comfortably take overs on David Jones' points per game, depending on what the line is, of course. But you kind of just book him for about 20 points a game, which is about where he's at in the season, and he's just looking like an NBA type guard / forward, however you want to list him. He's just that good of a scorer. So let's talk about the rest of that. Let's go through the flow of the second half. I think what I liked, other than David Jones's play, was the defensive change. They started playing with more defensive intensity. I know there's been a lot of talk in the Discord, on Twitter, about pressing and how Memphis is attacking on the defensive side. I think that I wouldn't say that their press was why they got back into the game defensively, but their energy on defense was why I think they were really to step up and lock down Wichita State a bit better. They ran them off the 3-point line definitely more consistently. They forced them to take a couple dribbles into the paint, collapsed on the defense, and forced a lot of turnovers. Wichita State, for the game, they had, let me just check the box score, they had 18 turnovers for the entire game. And Memphis did a good job collapsing on defense and really playing Tigers defense the way that we know they can do. How important to you, Mark, do you think will be just the defensive side of the ball, trying to continuously play with energy? How important will that be for Memphis moving forward?
I mean, it's huge. I mean, look at the points off timer. It's 31 today. Forget it. It was a noon game today. It threw me way off, by the way. A noon game, just
yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's big. 31 points off of 18 turnovers is huge for the Tigers. And I don't know the half breakdown when the turnovers were first half, but it feels like a lot of them came in the second half. That first 7-8 minutes of the second half, the Tigers just absolutely controlled it. Like they were they controlled every part of the game in the first 7 minutes after the end of the second half, and maybe even to 8-9 minutes, but at least the first 7. So it's huge. I mean, I won't say I'm not a guy who believes in defense wins championships, but it gives it starts, right? Because you got to score the ball eventually, but you got to have it because it definitely starts getting you going in the right direction. And so, you got to have something there and continue to pressure those guys. Like you mentioned, running them off the 3-point line, especially after the first half that they had, was super important. And so, it's huge for them. They got to continue to have that every single game. And a 112.86 is a defense. That's not a normal men's college basketball score. The 86 is not the 112. So shout out to keep them for holding them under 86. It's impressive.
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge this comment here from Asmodeus, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing the name to you as well.
He's not making it easy on us. He, she, them. Sorry, not making it as easy on us on the names. We'll try our best though.
We'll try our best. My response to a lot of people's concerns about slow starts, and I think all those concerns are always valid. You want to play a full 40-minute game, not just play like a 20-minute game or a 30-minute game or whatever. You want to play a full 40 minutes. I totally get that. What's more important to me is adjustments. Adjustments are the most important thing to me when I watch a basketball game, a football game. Any sport I watch is what in-game adjustments are made, because it really is not about how you start games. It truly is about how you finish games, how you adapt to what the other team is doing, what changes do you make, what do you continue to do, what do you stop doing that wasn't working. That to me is the most important thing. And as we were talking about before, the adjustments that Penny made at halftime were very evident. That the change of defensive philosophy and how they guarded the 3 against Wichita State was huge. Their offensive focus and seeing David Jones get the ball and the adjustment to just feed him the ball and let him stay hot. I mean, the first 20 points for the Memphis Tigers in the second half, David Jones scored or assisted in the first 20 points. Come on, man. That's insanity. That's incredible from David Jones. And again, credit to Penny and the coaching staff for just letting DJ do his thing. One of my biggest critiques of David Jones was his lack of playmaking. There too often he would just start to go downhill, defense would collapse, and it's just a lot of nothing. He doesn't see an open man. He doesn't. And apologies for my internet. It's unfortunately not the best at the moment, but he found Jaquan in a nice backdoor cut when David Jones drew 2 defenders, and he found Jaquan Walton. He had many flashes of just being a really quality all-around player. So, for me, it's way more about adjustments than anything than how you start in the first half. But yeah. So
I mean, I will say this, looking again, I keep mentioning the postseason because, we're well on our way towards that, right? I mean, I'll ask you a question in a second, but this is a type of adjustments is the thing you want to see, because when you get to the tournament and everybody sees you play on Friday and then maybe Sunday or whatever, whatever it is, every weekend, it's like the NBA playoffs. When you play guys 7 games in a row, it's more of a chess match at that point than it is a basketball game. And so I love to see the adjustments more. So like you mentioned, I would much rather see adjustments made well, right? Than starting out super hot and then maybe twiddling down towards the second into this first half and then nothing happened, or they make the adjustments and you are screwed the rest of the game. And so I think that's something to look forward to as everybody kind of talks about that, how we start the game, and understand that is going to be more important in March than coming off as a hustle. Now you want to start for sure. You want to start hot all the time, but that's going to be more important. I ask you this. Do you think this puts us in the top 10?
It's got to, right? A performance like this on the road against Wichita State team that I don't know off the top of my head if it's a Q3 or Q4 where they. I don't remember off the top of my head. You might know, Mark. I should know, but I don't know off the top of
I
my
don't know
mind.
either.
But
I don't know.
Either way, it's a road win in conference against a solid AAC team. I think Memphis should be a top 10 team, especially after the chaos of the college basketball week that's been. I mean, all the top teams losing, Kentucky losing to Texas A&M, which is a big one for us as we thank you, Roman Quad 2. Big one for us because obviously we beat Texas A&M and we want the teams we beat to also do well also. So that's a big one for us to see them win. But even in Tennessee escaped narrowly against Georgia. I saw that one recently as well. But Purdue, Houston, other top teams losing. I'm not going to say Memphis should be a top 5 team, but they're 13th now. They should be a top 10 team in the country. Advanced metrics aside, I don't want to get into a diatribe about advanced this, net that, Ken Palm this, Sagarin that. I don't want to get into a diatribe, at least not at the moment, about that. But I think Memphis should be a top 10 team. I would love to hear the thoughts of everyone in the comments as well. If y'all think Memphis would be a top 10 team, but I think they definitely should be after this week. So let's keep going with start talking about the second half more because I want to go back to a comment made by TJ up here when he said that he was super nervous about the Shockers hitting back-to-back threes.
Hey,
about 5 minutes.
I had the same thing. It was like 450 left. And then they're like, I think it was like 184. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? Because the announcer like, this is not over. I was like, it's not over.
It's not.
It'd be hard, but it wouldn't be, it'd be possible. It made me nervous too. Shout out TJ. It made me very nervous.
Yeah, made me nervous as well. And then who was the guy to calm everyone down but Javon Quinterly? Who else but Javon Quinterly to calm down the souls of Memphis Tiger fans across the whole world with that deep three that just quieted the whole crowd and just gave us all a nice sense of relief. I mean, that was nerve-wracking to say the very least, to see those back-to-back threes. I think I was not only was I nervous about the back-to-back threes, but I also didn't like the hero ball that was played at the preceding and while those back-to-back threes were happening. Like, it was just a bunch of – they went back to the hero ball, Memphis Tigers. You saw Javon Quinterly break out like NBA street moves and Naquan Tomlin not know what to do with the ball in his hands on the perimeter with about 5 seconds left in the shot clock. And just no movement off ball, no cutting to the rim. But again, I said this on Twitter, credit or X, whatever the heck you want to call it. I still call it Twitter. Said it on Twitter, credit to Penny for calling that timeout because some coaches may have even let them keep playing. They see they're up 16. They don't need to call a timeout there. They might want to save it if it gets to 12 or under double digits or whatever. But credit Penny for that timeout. And I think it did reset the team. Right after the timeout, JQ hits that three, and Memphis just is in full control. Like that three was a dagger, and as TJ said as well, it was never in doubt. It was never in doubt. So yeah, that a fantastic win for the Memphis Tigers, as we said, but as we've been talking about, total team performance as well. We harped on JQ, we harped on David Jones, but let's talk about Jaquan Walden a bit too, especially knowing that Caleb Mills is done for the year. Jaquan has become arguably one of the most important players on this team. We know what David Jones is. We know what Javon Quinterly is. Naquan Tomlin, let's see how he incorporates, and we'll talk about Naquan in a bit as well. But losing Caleb Mills as a scorer is huge. It's absolutely huge. And I think it'll be important to see him play well, and he played a great game today. He was fantastic. 23 points, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 3 assists, 3 boards, 8 of 12 from the field, 6 of 8 from the 3-point line.
Just a casual best game. A casual 6 for 8. We're worried about Caleb Mills in the scoring, and Jaquan Walton drops a casual 6 for 8 from 3. Again, not repeatable, but the volume is right. Like, I think that's something that you can always lean on with him. He's not going to shoot 6 for 8 from 3 every game. Will he shoot 4 for 8? 3 for 8. I will take that as well, right? Like
I'll take that.
That's something I'll take as well every single game. I think you're looking like 15 points a game from him. That's what you really need out of him a game. So I think that's really important. But yeah, huge game, great shooting, incredibly efficient. You can't ask for much else from him.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think you can add much else from him either. That's probably his ceiling of Jaquan Walton. Like, that's probably the best he can play in a game. I mean, of course, is it possible that he goes like 8 for 8 from deep and puts up 30? I mean, sure, I guess it's theoretically possible, but this is the best Jaquan Walton has looked. This is probably the best he will look. And if he can find some sort of consistency, I think that's absolutely vital. But before we take a break and move on to our next segment, let's talk about Naquan Tomlin a bit too, because this was also, I think, his best game as a Tiger. 14 points, 2 assists, 1 steal, 3 rebounds. I'm looking for more from him on a rebounding perspective, but 4 fouls kind of high. Let's hope that he limits his fouls moving forward. But he hit some really big shots. He seemed to be in the right place on offense and was a good finisher around the rim. He's so important. He's so important to this team. With no Jordan Brown, Malcolm Dandridge, shout out Malcolm for how good he's been throughout the whole season, but he can't do it alone. Naquan and Malcolm can be a dynamic 1-2 punch down low, and I think that's very possible as time goes by with Naquan Tomlin getting more incorporated to the offense. Thoughts on Tomlin?
Yeah, I mean, again, you're going to have those guys off the bench that come in and obviously 22 minutes off the bench is huge for him. I thought really impressive, but you're going to have those guys off the bench. I don't know if you're going to get 14 out of him every night. But if you can, great. I just don't know if you're going to be able to get 14 out of him every single night. But he's hugely important. Again, another incredibly efficient guy. 6 for 9 from 3 for those guys. Sorry, not from 3. Woo, excuse me. 6 from 9 from the field. I almost sent him into another stratosphere.
Oh man.
6 from 9 from the field. We're 2 for 3 from 3. The whole team shot incredibly well today. Again, like I said about JQ, they were great today, but the Shockers defense was awful, right? I mean, the Tigers shot 64%, 63% from 3, which is crazy. Just an insane efficiency from 3, which is not going to happen often, right? And so that was part of it too. But to your point with Tomlin, I mean, I thought he was great today. I thought if you can get double digit points from him off the bench every game, that would be a huge win.
Yeah, 100%. As time goes by, he's looking like he's getting a better feel of the offense and the defense as well. There were moments in his first few games where he looked lost on defense. He didn't know when to switch, when to hedge, when to ice a screen, when to play up, when to drop back. He just didn't look like he understood Penny's defensive system, but he has the defensive tools. He's quick enough moving his feet. He's long enough with his arms and athletic enough to block and then do everything you ask for from a big on defense. So I honestly have no worries about him defensively. And I think he will be a vital part of this team going forward. As you say it about the Wichita State defense, dare I say it was shocking, it was shocking. I had to do it. I know I had to do it. On that note, so let's take a quick break and we will be back soon.
Not just the level of individual talent that he plays with, but it's also the level of his mind. We haven't gotten cross-court open shot this year. Right. We haven't seen that pass a lot. Number one, you got to respect him going to the basket. There's a roller. I got to watch the roller. He has the mind to be able to say, I see all of that, and now I see this guy over here. I'm going to get him this open shot. How shifty he is to always be going forward. It's usually side to side. Yeah. His dribble moves are side to side, but going forward. Right. Which is very hard to defend. I just want to get you, as many times can I get you to do this? But for him, it's not here. It is here, which is are his moves to get down the floor. It's awkward for a defender to try to catch a cadence. You dribble. So now what I do is when you go put that ball down, I'm going for it. But with him, it's hard for my cadence. But
Right.
What's my cadence for you? I don't know what it is.
Tune in to the Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Who do you need to step it up? Outside of David Jones, I think David Jones is David Jones.
I don't think you need him to step it up because he's been performing.
Yeah, like he's David Jones. Like outside of him, he's fine.
I think Quinterly needs to play better.
In what way? Like, I mean, he's facilitating the ball well. I mean, what do you like? I don't.
Two at 12 from the field's not cutting it.
It's not great. It's not great.
And I don't need a runner 3 from the top of the key with 3.5 seconds left.
Is Virginia the game where Jordan Brown is going to cook? Those dudes aren't looking to run the ball.
Cook what? Dude, I thought he was going to have a freaking night. He came out with that fresh cut, lined up, and then literally within the first 15 seconds missed a wide open layup. And then picked up 2 fouls right away.
I feel real lied to because I thought we were getting a 20 and 10 guy.
Didn't think it did anything for you.
Well, I think
we all thought we were getting a 20 and 10 guy. And we are getting that in David Jones.
I'm not even getting 20 or 10 minutes out of the guy.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
What is good? Welcome back, everybody, from our commercial break. So we're about to have our beat writer for Bluff City Media, who's done a fantastic job covering the Memphis Tigers, going to games, asking questions, fantastic questions of Penny Hardaway in post-game, writing great articles for the website. We're about to have Roman Cleary join the show, give his thoughts on the game, give his thoughts on the Tigers thus far as well. Before we do that, Mark, question for you. Let me ask you about those metrics that seem to be so popular in the Discord and in Tigers Twitter, Memphis Twitter. How much weight are you giving these metrics? Do you care that do you just care about winning? Do you care about where they are in the net? Do you like what was your head at? And I'd love to hear your thoughts, Mark.
Look, I mean, I'm an analytics guy. Like I'm a big analytics guy. I do think that you can learn a lot from them. I don't know if it really is what you use to drive your system, right? Like, I think that you can glean information from them, but I don't know if it's necessarily something that you can use to dictate what you do and what you don't do. But if we keep winning, what does it matter? I guess that's the point. I mean, we do a lot of net this, net that. At the end of the day, at the end of the season, there's going to be a tournament, and we all going to have a chance to win. Right now, you want the easiest path to get there. That's for sure. And so you want your best. Obviously, you play the whole season to get the best path forward and to understand and get the best seed you can get. And so that's why we play the games at the end of the day, to get that best seed. But I do think at the end of the season, there's going to be a tournament. We're all going to play the games. So we're not, but the Tigers are all the Tigers are going to play the games, all this stuff. And so the metrics won't matter. It'll be a bunch of BS. The net, once we get to March, the net, this, net, that won't matter. Nothing will matter other than wins and losses. And so the Tigers have to go out there and play the games. And Penny has to put them in the best situation possible. So while I'm an analytics guy, I don't necessarily know if it matters too entirely much. It's also something just really out of your control, right? Like, it's nothing you can really do. So sometimes it's just a bunch of old white dudes deciding stuff that don't matter. So right? Like that's unfortunately the situation sometimes.
Yeah, I think those are definitely fair things to bring up. I'll share my thoughts and everything as well later on. But let's add Roman into the show. He's
you know what? I'll add him in. I'm gonna drop off. So you guys finish the show. It was great talking to you guys. Roman's much smarter than I am. You guys both together are much smarter than I am. So I'll put him in the show. It's great to be here. We'll catch you guys now.
Hey, how's it going, Francis?
What's going on, Roman? Good to have you on the show. First of all, before we get into everything, you're the man. You're awesome, Roman. Your articles, the way you're covering the Tigers, the previews, the recaps, how in depth you go. It's awesome to read, and it's great to have you on the show. How you doing, man?
First off, I guess we could just start out with not freezing cold. I'm actually here in the general Memphis area, and luckily I haven't frozen to a popsicle yet. Staying very sheltered, very much indoors. Even though the worst is probably yet to come. We got snow coming in later tonight, and then for most of tomorrow as well. So hoping to persevere through that. Prayers up to Jason Mines, who's going to be making the trip back. Hopefully he doesn't run into that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I'm doing pretty well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it, man. I would tell you all how the weather is where I'm at. I live in San Diego.
Please do not. No.
I'm a Memphian, born and raised, but I live in San Diego currently. So I'm not going to tell you what the weather is like because it might make everyone on this stream very angry with me, and I don't want anyone angry with me. That's never who I am. So I won't tell you. But Roman, let's talk about this game, man. Taylor feels like a tale of two halves, right? First half, high scoring track meet, not a lot of defense being played on either side. Second half, Memphis took control. So I'm sure you'll have your full thoughts on the game recap that you'll put out for Bluff City if you haven't put it out already.
Yeah, I
but
have.
what are you? Fantastic. So give the people just some thoughts, your thoughts on the game against Wichita State.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. Very much a tale of two halves there, even though I think it's pretty fair to say the defense didn't actually really improve for Memphis all that much in the second half, but the offense just got exponentially better somehow. I mean, they performed very well on the offensive side in the first half, but they just turned it up to another level, and I think the pretty obvious difference there is David Jones. I mean, he was very much non-existent, was 1 of 5 from the field in the first 20 minutes of the game and 2 points, and he comes out and scores 15 minutes in the first 5 minutes of the second half. He finished with 19, but he scored 15 of those points in the first 2 minutes of the second half. It was 49-43 or 49-46 when he got in there, and by the time his little run was over, it was 69-56, I want to say, with like 15:25 left in the game or whatever else. And of course, Memphis ends up expanding that role because Javon Quinterly becomes unconscious from 3. Jaquan Walton continues to perform well. Naquan Tomlin had a pretty quiet 14. Jourdain had 12. They had double-digit scores in this game. Those were, I believe, Quinterly, Jones, Walton, Tomlin, Dandridge, and Jourdain. So a lot of guys got a lot of shine here in this one, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, 6 players from the Tigers in double digits. Jaden Hardaway had 7 as well, hit a 3 in the game, and had some decent run on the court. This was a total team performance. I know Memphis had some great non-conference wins. They blew out Virginia. Obviously, they beat Clemson. Clemson's looking like a decent team, which is good for us. And they obviously have good out-of-conference wins. But I think, from my perspective, this was the best team performance. You get 6 guys scoring in double digits, and you score 100 and something points. Like, it's just, I don't know. This to me looked like the best team performance for the Tigers. What do you think? Would you consider this to be the best team performance as well, or another game?
I'd go Virginia personally on that.
Virginia?
I'd go Virginia because the defense was just so much better in that game than it was in this one. I don't think you can completely ignore how putrid the defense truly was. I mean, this is a team that KenPom ranks number 44 in defensive efficiency, but it just hasn't performed that way in these past 2 outings. I mean, UTSA, they turned into the San Antonio Splash Brothers on Wednesday, and then today, Wichita State, I think they shot 60% from three-point range in the first half, and that got down to 52% from beyond the arc by the end of the game. But still, that's just not good. I mean, you have to make more of an effort to guard the three-point line. You have to make more of an effort to just guard in general. But I think this just goes to show how special this Memphis team can be if they can figure out how to do so.
Yeah, I think I think that's a good shout. Virginia is definitely a good shout for the best team performance. Definitely better quality defense played by Memphis, and you're facing a better defense in Virginia than Wichita State's, no question. So I think that one was also that's a good option as well. I just think the ceiling for this team was shown today in terms of how good they can play on the offensive side of the ball. Like the 3-point shooting, we know that this roster has capable 3-point shooters for whatever reason, especially in the games that we've lost to Ole Miss, to Villanova. Memphis couldn't hit the broadside of a barn from 3. They just couldn't. And then as we start to see them play tonight or play this afternoon. Like Mark said, the time changes are weird. Play today, see them hit all those threes, be that efficient from the floor as well, and to see them run good offensive sets were definitely good to see. Roman, I've never asked you this question personally, so I'll ask you now.
Yeah.
What do you think is Memphis's ceiling this season?
Third weekend NCAA tournament. I think this team can go to the Final Four as like its absolute ceiling. My prediction is second weekend, but I would go with the Final Four there.
Okay. And so what holds you from I'll ask you this way. What keeps you from saying that the Tigers ceiling is a national championship? What keeps you from saying that?
I just don't think they're consistent enough on either end. I mean, they have nights where they're, solid defensively, but they just can't get it going offensively. And now they've had these last two outings where they are putting up 100 points on the board, but lo and behold, they can't get a stop to save their lives. And, luckily they were just so exponentially explosive in the second half today that it didn't really matter. But 86 points really shouldn't be an acceptable benchmark. I mean, prior to these past two games, Memphis hadn't allowed more than 80. So clearly there's been some kind of drop-off defensively. I think Caleb Mills has a lot to do with that. But I think it's just also a decreasing effort. This team is not guarding these conference games the same way they were guarding in the non-conference. Penny said that after the UTSA game on Wednesday, and I think that's just very much true. I mean, it really comes down to effort more so than anything else. If they can find that balance, find that consistency, then yeah, they can definitely be a national championship team. They certainly have the roster and the players capable of doing so. But I just think you need to be more consistent on both ends of the floor to be a true national championship contender.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I've seen in the comments, like, yes, Penny does pride himself on defense. So it's weird. Like whenever I talk to people about Penny Hardaway as a coach and the Memphis Tigers and how he is, I always tell people defense is the most important thing to Penny Hardaway. If you can't defend, then he's not going to play you. Like, it's just that simple. He's not going to put you on the court. But for whatever reason, and maybe it is, like the loss of Caleb Mills is definitely a good point by you, Roman, because he was one of Memphis's best on-ball defenders, so losing him hurts. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to be that way for the Tigers as a whole this year. Now, is that coaching? Is that player personnel? Is that defensive scheme? I'm sure there's obviously a lot of things that they can work on. I think as I talked about adjustments with Mark earlier, the big adjustment I saw was just running guys off the three-point line more consistently, closing out on a more controlled basis, forcing them to come downhill, compacting the defense once they got past their first man, and force Wichita State to make a decision to either drive into the trees, kick out to another person who, if Memphis continues to close out well, they won't have an actual open look. It may seem open, but it won't be open if they close out properly. Or do they force up a contested mid-range jump shot, which, as we know, is not a high percentage look in any form of basketball at any level? And so I think that defensive adjustment was key. And I'm definitely curious, and it's something to look at when we watch Memphis games moving forward, is how does Penny construct his defensive schemes, and how do they try to game plan around teams moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but it just has to get better. It just has to become more consistent. I mean, 101 points to UTSA and 86 points to Wichita, that's just not going to be good enough going forward.
Absolutely. And this great comment by Dave Dem there. So again, sorry if I get names wrong.
Yeah, all about the rotation. You gotta guard the 3-point line for sure.
That's what it's all about. Rotation, communication, being on a string, being on the same page on the defensive side. Like, that's what it's all about. And Memphis had moments where they were rotating really well. There was a couple of possessions where Malcolm would come off and would trap on the corner. So they'd basically have a trap here, another defender in the half court line, because obviously you can't go backcourt. And then you have the sideline as well. And Memphis did a great job of denying passes, denying open passes, easy passes to guys who are trying to run to the ball and get the ball from the guy who's trapped. Memphis had moments. They have shown moments of really quality defense. But as you said, and as we all know, it's just not consistent enough. So for you, Roman, is that the big difference maker for you determining their ceiling? Is it just all about consistency for you?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, at the end of the day, this team just doesn't have as good as defensive playmakers as it has in the past under Penny Hardaway previously. I mean, I think the 2021 team was much better defensively. The 2022 team, obviously, much better defensively. And even last year's team is at least comparable. I mean, I thought last year's team was Penny's worst defensive team since his first season by far. And I think this team has the potential to be better than last year's team when it comes to the defensive side of things. But as of right now, I think both of those teams are very comparable. And I know that's a trade-off you have to make in order to get guys who are going to score the ball for you more effectively. But I don't know. You hope that it gets better at the end of the day. And maybe Naquan Tomlin, once he's fully integrated into the system, maybe he makes a difference there. Maybe Carl Sharonfont can become a little bit more consistent offensively so he can get in there more. And really, that's kind of a problem. I mean, you have solid defenders on this team, on this roster, like Sharonfont, like Jalen Young. But the problem is that those guys just have so many limitations offensively that it's just hard for Penny to trust those guys to be on the court for extended periods of time.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Those are fantastic points. Shout out to, I know Diggs, who's been active in the comment section. Shout out to you. To your comment, I know Diggs about going more zone. I've actually
the
noticed
zone got
Penny,
destroyed in the UTSA game. The zone got destroyed.
Zone got absolutely lit up because UTSA just couldn't miss. So that's obviously a massive con to going zone.
No, against UTSA, the defense didn't get better until Penny went to man in overtime.
Yeah.
Like, so the rest of the zone were both getting mauled in that game.
Yeah. The going to zone is it's a fair point to bring up for sure. It's a fair point to bring up. There are times where Memphis has gone zone and it has been effective because Penny's recognized that they can't stop. They wouldn't be able. No, their defense couldn't stop us from going downhill and getting to the rim. So to stop dribble penetration, the best and easiest answer is to go zone and force them to beat you from outside. And there have been games where going zone has been effective. And then there are games where going zone can be a massive detriment to a team because that's not their bread and butter. They don't always run a zone. And that's always been my hesitation for just automatically saying, let's just run a lot of zone. Because if that's not your main bread and butter, that's difficult to just snap into in a game and make that adjustment. Because zone, you got to be completely locked in on the same page. You got to be. It's a similar defensive philosophy on zone that is in a man. You have to be on the same page. You got to still rotate. You have to cover. You still have to cover your space really well, and you have to guard backdoor cuts. Like, it's not. I wish it were that simple to just go zone. I think it's a good idea, and if things aren't working with man, try out a zone. But I just want to say I don't think it's just that simple to always be going to just make and go zone.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the defense will improve when the effort gets better. I know that's kind of a blunt way to put it, but I think it really comes down to effort more so than anything because this team was so much better defensively in the non-conference portion of their schedule. Just it was. But starting with the Vanderbilt game, I feel like the defense has kind of teetered off. And when that happened against Vanderbilt and Austin Peay, you could at least attribute that to, it's right around Christmas break. They're probably thinking about that a bit more, yada, yada, yada. But it's just become a consistent problem at this point now. And I don't know. I mean, it comes down to a point where eventually you can do nothing but look at yourself in the mirror and say, what can I do better? Penny talked about that after the UTSA game. Again, he brought up a point how a lot of these guys are more so scoring oriented as opposed to, defensive minded. And that can be a problem when they're not the leading scorer or they're not going off or whatever, they can oftentimes check out. And I think you see that a lot when they're on the court. They're not giving the effort defensively just because they're not getting the shots they want, the looks they want, the points they want, whatever. It really comes down to, when you have so many guys used to being the number one guy, the number one scorer, when they're not that, it can cause them to have kind of a mental toll. They're kind of, I guess, just drain them a little bit. And the effort's going to drop off because of that.
Yeah, no, again, all fair points. I think you're making a lot of sense. I wanted to address this question. put on the chat here. Do you think it's more so taking way too many gambles on defense and not rotating to second or third pass? I think that's a big part of it. Help defense is not about gambling. Help defense is about recognizing knowing where your man is, but also recognizing where the ball is and making the right read to stop points. So if your man is in the corner, someone drives, it's not always about just digging in to help the man. You can help in multiple ways. You can help by showing, you can also be cognizant of where your man is. So if you see the guy that you're helping try and make a pass to your man, it's also about closing out and being controlled. So I think it's about not taking too many gambles, but also being, as you said, Roman, in total control of your body. Because I think when you do see times where David Jones gambles on passing lanes, JQ, Tomlin, etc., Walton, they gamble on passing lanes, they gamble on decisions when it's not controlled. It's not being in the same page.
Yeah, but it's kind of a double-edged sword at the same time because, again, these guys aren't the best defensive players from the beginning. Like, they're not the most reliable people when it just comes to guarding on ball. This team doesn't have a Lester Quinones. It just doesn't.
Yeah. They're too often as good as Jaquan Wan looked today. I don't think he's a phenomenal on-ball defender either.
And he's probably the best perimeter defender they have, besides Jalen Young, probably.
Yeah, I think David Jones is a good perimeter defender. He has moments where he's locked in, looks like a good perimeter defender. But I think, like you said, it's just always being locked in and committed to the defensive side of the ball, and not just trying to save energy or relax on defense and try and put up buckets on offense. It's about constantly playing with effort and energy on the defensive side and being on the same page. I think, to me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we've talked about over and over again, right? I mean, This team is 4-0 in AAC play, but 3 of those games have been nail biters and, kind of too close for call finishes when they really shouldn't have been. A lot of that comes down to just not giving enough effort on the defensive end. When you go to Tulsa, they really kind of stormed by them in the first half there. Now, obviously, that's when the Mills injury happened, so it's kind of understandable that they checked out there. And they played very well defensively against SMU, but there's just no excuse for what happened on Wednesday against a team like UTSA. It just not. I mean, the only reason Memphis won that game is because they got sent to the free throw line 43 times, and UTSA is awful defensively. Like, they're bad. Ken Palm ranks them number 325, I believe, in adjusted defensive efficiency. Like, that team just cannot guard at all. So Memphis scored 107 points with ease. If not for that, Memphis would have lost what would have been a quad 4 game.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that that offensive foul that was called on the UTSA big man on that screen when UTSA had a chance to either take the lead or tie the game up.
It would have been for the lead, yeah.
It would have been for a lead, and the dude had a wide open dunk because I'm pretty confident it was David Jones just overhelped and gambled, as we've been talking about, on trying not trusting his teammates who could stop the pick and roll offense, the 2-man game there. He just left his man, and if that offensive foul is not called, UTSA, they might just win that game. Little things like that.
And then all of a sudden you're in a situation where Memphis is either out of the top 25 completely or they're barely in. And if you think the net ranking in the Ken Palm is bad now, oh God, it would have been so much worse. That Memphis drops down to 70, 80 all of a sudden. If you lose to a team like UTSA that was ranked number 285 in both metrics heading in, that I don't even know what to say there. That would have been by far the most embarrassing loss for any team this season. Maybe the Bryant FAU game would have competed with it, but that still probably would have topped the list there.
Yeah, I agree. Memphis got away with the one there against UTSA. But again, credit to them today. Give them credit today against Wichita State on the road in a hostile environment. It's always hard to play at Wichita State with that great fan base over there.
Yeah. And he's 4-1 at Wichita now. He's 4-1 at Wichita in his career, and he's 9-1 against Wichita all the time. I mean, Wichita is a team that Penny has traditionally had success against. Not many teams have. Not many coaches have.
Yeah, shout out Mike here. Naquan is like a DeAndre clone. What a midseason edition. Yeah,
I mean, he really is. I've heard a few people say that. that. And I can see the comparison for sure. I think DeAndre is a much more reliable perimeter shooter, but Naquan Tomlin is certainly a fantastic talent. And I think once he's fully integrated into what Memphis is doing, that raises the Tigers' ceiling all that much more.
100%. So let's do a quick look ahead for the next game against South Florida. Then we'll get out of here. So Roman, do you have any thoughts on the South Florida matchup up next?
Well, Memphis should roll through them.
Yeah.
It's a midweek home game. No reason Memphis should lose that. I mean, all due respect to South Florida, but Memphis has no business losing that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Midweek home game. South Florida has a couple decent guards, but otherwise, as a whole, I do think Memphis should get this dub, keep the win streak going. Again, like in AAC play, there's going to be a lot of games like the South Florida at home against Wichita State today on the road too. So they got to keep playing with intensity.
Little metric overview of South Florida. They're currently a 144 in Ken Palm right now, 130, 183 in offensive efficiency, and 100 in defensive efficiency. So a pretty decent defensive team that you got here, but not a team that should be able to score on Memphis all too often.
Yep, I agree. So let's see what happens midweek. South Florida at home. Let's see if Memphis can keep
123 in defensive efficiency for South Florida.
Gotcha. No worries at all. Let's just see how Memphis does midweek. Hopefully they continue the win streak. But again, to everybody, Roman, again, thank you for coming on the stream.
Oh, no, of course, man. It's fun.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Mark, thanks for putting the show together. Candy Stubblefield, Christian, everybody at Bluff City Media, to everybody on the comment section, shout out to y'all. We'll definitely get the comments, involve them more. Feel free to ask us any questions moving forward. Let's get that engagement going. But thank you, everybody. Much love, much appreciation. I'm Francis Carlota. Until next time.
Peace out, y'all.